I was 19 at the time. I'm 47 now, and I was on drugs. I was a rave kid. I went to parties and did drugs at the parties. And on this one specific night, we went to Cincinnati, Ohio for a rave, and I hadn't eaten very much. I had snorted a 20 sack of crystal meth, smoked some weed, and then when I got to the rave, one of my drug dealer friends was selling ecstasy, so I took a pill of ecstasy. And I was pretty much fine all night, considering. And then in the morning, raves are over at about 5 in the morning or so. And right when the rave was coming to an end, I asked him if he had another pill of ecstasy, and he said, well, I'm all sold out of that, but here's a pill of PCP if you'd like one of those. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And it was a giant horse pill. And I hadn't eaten in a couple days, and had a lot of drugs in my system at that point. And so I took this pill of PCP, and the rave was over. We went back to our hotel room, and I started having really scary symptoms. Told my friends there, I think I'm ODing. And one of my friends was like, here, I'll run you a bath. And I sat in the bathtub, and then they were like, we're gonna all go to the after party. So they all left, and I was there by myself in this hotel room. And I started feeling worse and worse, and my legs started going numb. Basically I was losing feeling all the way up my body, and started moving kind of in and out of some kind of consciousness, and felt like my soul was leaving through the nape of my neck right here. And I kept using all of my might to pull it back into my body. It's a very interesting and scary sensation. It gets fuzzy right about that point where my body was going numb and I was pulling my consciousness back into my body. But I started praying, and as I started praying, I guess I moved into some different reality. And at this point, I don't remember if I was in the tub anymore, if I had gotten out of the tub. This whole part of it was like I left the physical reality and entered into a completely different reality where I no longer had any awareness of my physical body. And so I'm in this other dimension, and I meet this tsunami of energy. It didn't have any specific form or anything. It was more of a presence, and it was a huge presence. It was a very intimidating presence because it was so huge. And I called it God. And it replied back to me. A better name is Geschichte, which is, I learned later, means history in German. But at the time I had no idea what that meant. And I started asking this energy, to please forgive me, and that I didn't mean to kill myself, and that I would do, whatever was asked of me if I was allowed to continue living. And I went through what people call a life review. I started seeing the ways that I had behaved in my life that had hurt other people. I could actually feel the pain I caused other people. I was shown my funeral, and I saw all the people there that were mourning me and just very sad. And it was a very enlightening experience, because I really believed that no one really cared that much about me. I really didn't feel that important to people. So seeing my funeral and seeing all of these people that were sad was enlightening for me to see that people actually cared about me, and it was humbling, because I saw how wrong I was, and I felt their pain. And so this whole thing ended up going on for hours, because from the time that my friends left to the time where I just woke up, I was on the bed when I woke up, and it was probably like a 5-hour period of time. So my experience during those 5 hours was in some kind of different reality. And I've had, people say, oh, it's just a drug-induced something. And, to me, I don't think so. I don't think that, obviously the experience was drug induced because I was having an overdose. But I had done a lot of drugs at that point, and nothing was ever like that. So I definitely left my body in some fashion and had made contact with this energy that really changed my perspective in every way possible. Because after that experience, when I woke up and realized I didn't die, it was like, game on. Like, now my life, I can feel my life is going to take on a very different path. And I knew that I couldn't do hard drugs anymore, which that was one of the promises I had made in this experience, was I won't do hard drugs anymore, and I'll, really get my life together and start treating the people in my life with more care, and treating myself with more care, and just generally be guided into whatever direction I'm meant to go. So after that, number one, I would call it PTSD for a while, because when you have a near-death experience that's as traumatic as mine was, the anxiety after that is pretty severe, and I experienced pretty extreme anxiety after that for a while. And then I started having this weird thing happen to me, where at the time I worked at a framing shop. I framed artwork. I'm an artist, and we did bulk orders of framing artwork, and I managed the place, and I did all the work. So I was there by myself, and we didn't have a lot of clients, a lot of people that came into the shop. And every day at midday, I would get so tired that I couldn't keep my eyes open, and I would crawl up on this framing table, which was just basically wood with a very thin layer of carpet on it, so you're not scratching the glass and stuff and the frames. And so I would crawl up there and just lie down on my back and just pass out. And while I was in this passed out state, I would hear voices around me, like people were walking around, but I couldn't open my eyes and I couldn't move my body. And every time I woke up, I would look around like, did we have people in here? What just happened? It was very disorienting. That happened to me every day for a good year. And I started having strange experiences of being more aware of more going on within someone than I used to be. So when someone was speaking to me, I could feel their emotions more clearly. I could feel if what they were saying was congruent with what they were thinking and what they were feeling. And at this point in my life, I am very organized with that. I completely understand what's happening, and I've actually now used this skill to train people to be able to do this, and also just to help people navigate life by understanding where they're lying to themselves, because that's what that is. When there's all those incongruencies, those are lies that we tell ourselves, and we're really good at that as humans. But at the time, when I was, just fresh into it, it was extremely disorienting. Like, what in the heck is happening to me? And then I met a woman who was a psychologist, and she was also a Native American shaman. She was a doctor of psychology and created her own therapy. And she had had her own death experience where she literally died in the hospital and had a walk-in experience, how she described it. And this woman trained me and taught me for over a decade. And so with her, I really learned even more about human psychology, how to work with people in a very deep way, how to work with people in the theta state, how to put people in the theta state and work with them there. So at this point, all of these skills that I've been cultivating over this long period of time, I use to teach and to help others. So that's it in a nutshell. Well, the experience was definitely corrective. The energy that I met at this point, now that energy that I met, Gashikta speaks through me, so that's how I teach and that kind of thing. But it was a corrective energy, meaning it was going, you need to correct your path, So was it loving? Yeah, it was. But the way that we humans often think of loving. We kind of think of loving as this coddling type energy, and this, let's not be offensive, Geschichte is not an energy like that. It's a very loving energy, but it's a very corrective energy. It's intimidating because it's so upright, and the authority within the energy is, I'd never experienced anything like that. So I learned a totally different dimension of love, because I really did feel love, and I also felt this message of, you can do better than this. You're not living up to your potential at all, and you need to snap out of it, and your life is your greatest gift, and you're not honoring it. So it was a loving energy, but it was a disciplinary kind of energy also.
Now, you also mentioned that if you were to be given a chance to come back to this life, that you longed for this. So what was there in your life at the time that you were looking forward to? Why did you want to come back?
That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. I just felt that I wasn't done. I felt that, it's funny, I had spent so much of my life depressed because there was some abuse in my childhood, and it really set me on a downward spiral. And especially when I hit my teenage years, I just couldn't deal with the emotional trouble that I experienced. And so I became pretty obsessed with how crappy life was. And I became quite self-centered, I would say, because you really can't really be a life-giving force in the world if you're in a depressed state. It's a self-absorbed state. But when you're in it, you can't see it. I realized that, the biggest thing I realized when I was having this near-death experience was my life is actually the greatest gift. And I haven't even been honoring it as a gift at all. I've been looking at it like it's a curse. And so that is the perspective that changed in the experience, and it made me see my life differently. It made me go, well, there's so much I can do. There's so much I want to do. I have so much inside of me, and I know I have so much potential. So it was, in the interaction with this energy too, I felt all of that. And that's why I'm saying it is a loving energy. It's corrective, but also it illuminated everything in me that I had been denying about the beauty of this existence. And it was like I could finally see it. And I could finally see, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my gifts, I'm wasting my talents, I'm wasting my intelligence, I'm wasting my ability to love and to offer and contribute in this world. And I want another chance, because I want to be able to engage with all of that. So I looked forward to actually being able to live, because I realized I hadn't been living. Well, I think that often when we experience abuse, definitely in childhood, but pretty much anywhere in our lives, we end up getting stuck in the past. We end up on a loop, and we're seeing everything through that lens, where the whole world is colored through the lens of abuse. And what changed is that lens went away. I realized that I had been living in the past. I realized that I was seeing my future through the lens of the trauma of the past, and I was basically regurgitating the energy of that and creating it in my moment consistently. I realized in that experience I didn't have to do that I was actually free. I wasn't in the abuse anymore. And so why was I continuing to relive it and replay it and formulate my entire life structure, who I am, what I'm going to do, and all of it within that victimhood? It was putrefying, the whole thing. And I saw it. I realized it.
That's incredible. And I think I can definitely imagine it's not an easy process at all.
It's not. And it, when you tell the story and it's like, I survived and then everything got better, it's like, it got better, but I've worked hard in my life to be where I am now, really hard. And I've worked really hard to heal so much within me and to correct my perspective in this life so that I'm truly living with intention and truly being a harmonious component to the energy of life itself instead of fighting it. That's made all the difference. It's not easy, but I don't think this life is supposed to be easy. I really don't. I don't think that's what this entire human experience is.
So you were not in the best place mentally, and at the same time you wanted to keep to your promise. But how do you then prevent from, trailing this new path that was new for you, being sober, and not going back to what you knew, so what was comfortable, the drugs?
Well, I had to quit hanging out with everyone I was hanging out with, for one, and so I was pretty lonely for a little while because I didn't even know how to have fun without drugs anymore. That's one of the things that happens when you become a drug addict is you lose your childlike essence. You forget how to enjoy life without being messed up. So I had to relearn how to enjoy life, and I had to do it alone. I mean, I had to come off of all those drugs by myself, and that was rough. That was really rough. And I definitely had withdrawal symptoms. And then it wasn't the end of my emotional problems. I still had them, and even after I was on hard drugs, I ended up being on pharmaceutical medications for quite a while. And then I had to learn the hard way with those that's still not solving any problem, so I had to go through my own process of weaning off of those too. I really started to focus in areas that brought me joy and brought me peacefulness. So right after I OD'd, I started practicing yoga a lot. Yoga was one of the main things that helped me through the withdrawals and all of that. And I really poured myself into my art because I needed something to do and I needed a creative expression. So those were the two things that I really threw myself into aside from working. I was working full time also. And then I ended up going into art college and when I started studying with the psychologist, when I first started seeing her, it was as a client. So first I was seeing her as a client, and then I was also her student, and for a long time I was her student and her client. And so I really started learning how, because she didn't, medications weren't a part of what she did. So I started learning really how to interact with my emotions in a very positive way. And I created my own processes too of how to deal with my emotions. So I learned how to transform negative emotional energy or uncomfortable emotional energy. And that was something else that I really poured myself into because I did learn that there is no way out of the pain except learning to alchemize it. You've got to learn how to turn that energy into a different energy. And it's a complex process for human beings because we have the emotions, and then we have the thoughts that are connected to the emotions, and we have the memories that are connected to the emotions and the thoughts, and then we have the belief structures that are connected to the emotions and the thoughts and the memories, and then we have the behaviors that are connected to all of those as well. And so there's a lot in the dynamic of internal pain and internal dysfunction. And I really did pour myself into the science of healing that, and I've become a master of it, and I've truly healed myself through as many ways as possible. And to this day, I really focus on as much as I can creatively. So I write music, I sing, I play my baritone ukulele, I paint, I draw, I practice different forms of qigong, and I spend time in nature. I exercise quite a bit. I really keep myself interacting with as much as I can to keep myself interested in life. Because I think that when we become bored of life because we're not challenging ourselves to be creative and interact, and when we're not engaging our intelligence, our creativity, when we're not challenging ourselves, we become complacent, we become bored, we start to get stuck in mental and emotional loops, and we start to kind of sink into hopelessness.
Now, I want to talk about negative emotions. You were talking earlier about being able to shift those negative emotions and to transform that energy. Could you tell me more about what you mean by that?
Well, negative emotions they're a dynamic, right? So you might sit there and go, I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling hopeless. And we're not trained. We're not taught when we're little how to go, okay, well, what's going on with that? What is my perspective if I'm hopeless? And if you sit in the energy of hopelessness for a second and you go, what is that about for me? Why? Why am I feeling hopeless? And you get this, and you sit in the energy of it. You might come up with something like, well, nothing in life is ever joyful. Nothing in life is ever good. So everything is futile. So what's my point? What's my purpose here? What's the point of being alive? And you might not realize it, but those kind of thoughts, those are all the thoughts that are behind the energy of hopelessness. And those are playing in the background, like a song that you forgot was playing that you can't hear anymore because it's played over and over, and you're so used to it. And so you've got these thoughts that just kind of go round and round and round in the back, and it starts to create this film through which you see life. And when you bring your awareness to the film, to the lens that you're looking through, and you shine a light on it, and you ask, well, is that accurate? Is it accurate? What you find is it's not. What you find is that the perspective that's creating the negative emotion is the replay of a moment or a period that was difficult. But there's all of these other moments, and there's all of these other aspects that are occurring right now at the same time, and were even occurring at the same time during whatever is stuck, that you're not seeing. And what happens is these loops that form the perspective, they become so worn in our minds that we can't even see a different way out of them. So we end up telling ourselves a story about it. Right? So then you realize, oh wow, so that emotion of hopelessness attached to those thoughts has now actually created a belief structure within me that I'm buying into. I'm buying into the belief that life is futile, it's never going to get better, it always sucks, everything is bad, and it's like I have created my own prison, and I'm living within this energy, and I'm not allowing any other evidence about anything else to penetrate this existence in here. And so it's like I would start exploring, is it futile? Is life futile? Because if life is futile, then that means there's nothing I can ever do. There's no way I can ever apply myself. There's no new way I can think about a thing. There's no new person I can meet. There's no way for me to look at life and people differently that's going to change anything, ever. Do I really believe that? And it's like, no, I don't believe that. That's ridiculous. That doesn't even make any sense. It's like, okay, well, what else is occurring that I can pay attention to? How am I interacting that I can pay attention to in a different way? What in my life is actually beautiful? What in my life is showing me that there's something magical going on? And if you just start asking the questions, things start showing up, Number one, our hearts beat without us thinking about it. We don't have to sit there and tell our hearts to beat. We don't have to tell our lungs to breathe. There's so many intricacies happening all the time that are nothing short of amazing. And we're blessed with that. And then it's like, well, if I apply myself differently in everything that I'm seeing as shit, then does it turn into something different? And the answer is yes. If I apply myself differently, if I interact differently, if I simply interact with a different attitude, just as an experiment, do I get a different result other than futility? Well, it's very possible I do. If I focus on how I can contribute, or how I can better love a person, or how I can engage with more passion in some kind of endeavor, do I get different results? Yes, I do. And so it's like we have to be able to challenge our own thought processes and the stories that we tell ourselves, and then hold ourselves accountable to, am I doing anything? Am I applying myself in any way that can create a different result? Or do I need to apply myself and think in a way that gives me the result that allows me to continue thinking that everything is hopeless? Am I lazy? Is that why I'm hopeless? Or am I truly a creative extension of life itself? And am I willing to give myself evidence of that? And so that's all it takes. You have that whole thought process, and then you go, all right, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure out I'm just going to apply myself differently. I'm going to apply myself in a way to where I'm contributing, or I'm not in a reactive state. I'm not just reacting to what other people are saying to me or doing to me, but I'm actually engaging with the creative energy of life to create some kind of interesting result, even if it's as simple as harmony in a moment between two people. But if I take my mindset and I turn it in, and I take it from hopelessness to, because hopelessness, it's on the receiving end. It's saying, nothing I do matters, right? But if you go, well, what if what I do does matter? What if it matters to me? And so I'm going to apply myself differently. I'm going to focus on my own contribution in this world. I'm going to focus on my own contribution in this relationship. I'm going to focus on my contribution in this job. And I'm going to generate self-esteem and self-appreciation through contribution. Will that give me a different emotion inside than futility, than hopelessness? Well, I don't know. I've never tried it. Well, okay, then it's my responsibility to try it, because I know what hopelessness feels like, and it's boring and old. So what if I try something new? And what if I become as consistent with that as I was with this whole hopelessness thing going on? And, so what I've found in transforming negative emotional energy is that it really is about how we apply ourselves within these different dynamics. And it's really about not being lazy, not being mentally lazy, not being spiritually lazy, and not being lazy in our ability to interact in life and to actually expect more from ourselves if we want to experience something greater. And to stop putting ourselves in a victim mindset, but instead put myself in a generative mindset. Like, if I'm the one generating, what am I going to generate? And when you ask that question and you've been in a depressed state and you really look at it honestly, it's like, I have not been generating anything that would give me a great result. Why have I been expecting other people to give me a great result within myself? And I've really found that every single negative emotion, number one, you have to kind of walk through the whole thing mentally. Number two, you have to apply yourself to whatever it is that you figure out. Number three, you have to be consistent with it. You have to be consistent with it until you successfully create a new internal energy, which you can, and you absolutely can. And that's, I think, the entire point of negative emotion, is actually to figure out how to do that. Because once you figure out how to do that, then a negative emotion is very short-lived, because you realize, okay, this is where I am, and that's fine, and I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna listen, and I'm going to experience this, and I'm gonna find my way out of it. And every single time I find my way out of one, I learn something new. And what I learn, I then get to apply in my life. And so my life becomes more and more interesting, more and more full, more and more fulfilling because I do this. And I really think with humanity, this is our most significant form of laziness. And it's the main reason why we're unhappy. Yeah. So I do a few different things. Number one, I hold classes. And right now I've got 2 ongoing classes. My advanced class, they've been with me for about 5 years. And we meet weekly, and it goes just really deep into transforming all kinds of stuff within and learning how to navigate life with a lot of intention and a lot of power. It's kind of difficult to describe what happens in these classes because we're always working with whatever energy shows up. So whatever the students bring, interact with that, and everyone learns how to, transform things within themselves, how to move forward with more empowerment, how to just live life with greater magic and more power, because this really is a magical world that we're living in, and it's an energetic world that we're living in. And a lot of people talk about energy, but in my observation, they don't really know what they're talking about a lot of the time. The energy is in the dynamics, and it's in the dynamics within ourselves, it's in the dynamics with others. The majority of the dynamics are happening in regard to relationships. So if you even think about everything in life, even if you're talking about your job or something, it's all relationships. And the way that we interact is either strangling the magic or it's expanding the magic. And the majority of us are not trained on how to expand the magic. We are conditioned to strangle it. And so we have a very rough life experience instead of it being an expansive life experience. And so through these classes, we really uncover, untangle, and bring more and more magic to the internal dynamics and the external dynamics. And we actually have, Gashikta and I created a healing form. That's part of what we teach. And we use it in the ability to heal. So to heal physically, to heal things emotionally, and to create more harmony and more of an awareness of the magic that's going on here, and more of an ability to direct the magic. So we focus a lot on how to actually become harmonious with the energy of life itself. And that sounds easy, but if you really look at the way that most of us are actually viewing the energy of life itself, we are not open to it. We actually have these pretty strong belief structures in place that say life is out to get me. And we kind of cringe at, what is life going to teach me next? And so the most basic relationship that sets the tone for everything else is our relationship with the energy of life itself. And we've never been taught that, and we've never been trained how to interact with that in a way that expands the magic. And in my classes, that's what we do. We explore that. And so the people that go through my classes, they completely transform. They really become someone totally different than they started out being in the class. And I help people do this on the ones that don't want to do such intense work, because the weekly sessions are intense. For those, I do what we call wisdom teachings. And if you go to energeticalchemy.me, that's our website, and you can go to our events and you'll see every month we have a wisdom teaching. And that's for anyone. They're very reasonably priced so that everyone can afford them. And they're 2 hours long. And they're on all kinds of different subjects in helping people navigate life and helping people connect more to the magic of the energy of life instead of feeling like they're going to cringe to it. Then we create what I've labeled an energetic alchemies, which is, it's what I took you through earlier with the idea of hopelessness. What I really did was I spoke a problem. The problem the thought problem of hopelessness. And then I spoke the catalyst of what would turn that into a completely different emotional state. In the energetic alchemies, what I'm doing is working with people in a way that I'm listening to the energy that's coming from them, the emotional energy, and what it has to say. So like in the example of the hopelessness, I gave you the words for what the hopelessness was. And by listening to the energy of the hopelessness, or whatever the negative emotion is, instead of explaining it to you like I did earlier, I just allow that energy to just talk me all the way through its process into its functional state. As I do that, the energy actually changes, and so whoever is a part of that actually experiences the energy change, and it creates entirely new background dialogue, new neural pathways. And I keep these recordings, they're usually anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes long, called Energetic Alchemies, and I've made at least 100 of them, probably more, and we're putting them weekly on this app that we created, so that if you're going, oh, I feel hopeless, or oh, I feel angry, that you can click on one of these and it will take you through the alchemical process of turning that negative emotion into a positive one, where you don't have to be the one to sit there and think about how to do it, but you go on the journey. And you can listen to it over and over and over and over again, and it will start to change the way you think about a thing. It'll start to change the way you interact with the idea of the thing, and it will create new neural pathways. And so those are on the app. That's another way that I help people. I also create meditations, which are on the app, which are a similar structure to the alchemy, but what I'm doing instead is I'm listening to the energy, but I'm not speaking the negative part of it. So on the meditations, I'm saying it a way of, these are the things that you're releasing, and then I'm speaking the new pathway into function. So it's still an alchemical process, it's just spoken differently. And there's hundreds of those too, and new ones are getting put on the app every single week. So you can literally get on that app, listen to these meditations, these alchemies, and really start healing the emotions within yourself. And those are the main ways. And then of course I do one-on-ones where I just help people with whatever problems they're having. And I have some people that see me every week, some people that see me once every 6 months, but in general I help people transform their negative emotions into functional emotions, which are a positive experience. And I help people solve the problems in their lives that they feel like they can't solve. And I help people expand the magic within themselves so that they actually can navigate life with intention, authority, and a sense of excitement and expansion. Well, you can go to energeticalchemy.me and you can schedule an appointment with me on that website, through that website. You can go to our events on that website, and you can, the best way to see if you want to work with me is to attend one of those events. They're like $20, and you get 2+ hours of interaction, and then you can go. A lot of times you'll get your questions answered in that, or it might bring up a better awareness for you, and then you can have a one-on-one with me. And if you don't want to do any of that, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is Angel Gashikta and Keith Coley. That's the name of the YouTube channel. And of course, everything that's on the YouTube channel you can just watch. I've done a lot of free webinars, which are basically wisdom teachings that are on there. They're couple hours long on many different subjects. I've done a couple of meditations on there, a couple of alchemies on there. My husband, Keith, he's also quite magical, and we do something called Full Monties, which is an energetic alchemy, plus you're getting an energetic treatment by Keith while I'm doing that. So those are really powerful. Those are on the YouTube channel. So those are the couple ways I would recommend. Thank you for having me on.